For 50 years in Hollywood, Walter Matthau had a reputation for never biting his tongue. He mocked studio executives to their faces, told directors where to go, and once even quipped that he had more talent in his fart than Barbra Streisand had in her whole body. That sharp tongue was part of his legend. But there's a little-known story from 1995 that almost no one talks about. During a television interview, everything began normally. Standard questions, polite answers. Then Matthau suddenly stood up, yanked off his microphone, and stormed out. The cameras were still rolling. And what happened after explains why that footage was quietly shelved for nearly 30 years. Walter Matthau was born on October 1st, 1920, on New York City's gritty Lower East Side. His mother, Ospiralski, had immigrated from Lithuania to escape poverty and persecution. His father, Milton Matansky, came from Kiev and scraped by with odd jobs, sometimes as a peddler, sometimes as an electrician. Their world was crowded and harsh. At that time, more than 500,000 Eastern European Jewish immigrants crammed into that small corner of Manhattan. The buildings were dilapidated, disease was rampant, and survival was a daily struggle. Matthau later described his childhood neighborhood as a dreadful, horrible, stinking nightmare. When Walter was only 3 years old, his father abandoned the family. Rose never explained much. At 15, Matthau finally learned through a letter from Bellevue Hospital that his father had died. Rose shouldered the burden of raising Walter and his older brother, Henry. She earned pennies sewing women's underwear in a sweatshop and left. Her boys at a nursery run by the Daughters of Israel for $1 a week while she worked grueling hours. Life inside those cold water tenements was bleak. They had no heat, no hot water, and sometimes had to share a single toilet with everyone on the floor. Rent was rarely affordable, so eviction notices came often. To escape, Walter would hide in that shared bathroom, reading Shakespeare to drown out the misery. By age 6, Matthau was already hustling to help his family survive. He ran a rooftop card game called Bankers Brokers. He honked candy, soda, and ice cream at Yiddish theaters, sneaking peeks at the plays between sales. Watching those performances planted the first seeds of show business in his imagination. At 11, he landed his first acting job in a children's play called The Dishwasher, earning 50 cents a performance. Even then, he kept selling snacks during intermission, never missing a chance to earn a few coins. After high school, the Great Depression meant dreams had to wait. He joined the Works Progress Administration, WPA, in Montana. He planted trees and cleared trails as a forestry worker. Because he'd boxed as a teenager, the WPA also paid him to coach New York City policemen in boxing. A job that introduced him to every kind of character, from tough street cops to eager rookies. In 1942, Matthau enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Forces. Assigned to the 453rd Bombardment Group of the 8th Air Force, he served as a radio man gunner on B-24 Liberators. His base was RAF Old Buckingham in Norfolk, England. The missions were brutal. Matthau flew combat over Nazi-occupied Europe, including Berlin, and took part in operations supporting the DA invasion. He earned 6 battle stars and rose to the rank of staff sergeant. Among his commanding officers was none other than Hollywood actor James Stewart. Matthau survived missions that claimed countless others, an experience that shaped his humor, toughness, and appreciation for life after the war. Matthau studied acting on the GI Bill at the New School's dramatic workshop. His mentor was Erwin Pisser, the renowned German director. His classmates included Marlon Brando, Tony Curtis, and Rod Steiger. These years refined his skills and introduced him to people who would later dominate theater and film. In 1946, at age 26, Matthau made his Broadway debut in An Of the Thousand Days. At first, he was just an understudy, sometimes covering 7 roles at once. It was exhausting, but it taught him discipline. By the 1950s, he became a fixture on live television, appearing in more than 150 productions. Live TV was unforgiving. No room for mistakes. But Matthau thrived. His big break came in 1955 with Will's success Spoil Rock Hunter on Broadway, ran 44 performances. That same year, he made his film debut in The Cucky Inn opposite Burt Lancaster. In 1965, Matthau won a Tony Award for The Odd Couple, playing the messy sports writer Oscar Madison. The role fit him so perfectly that Neil Simon later admitted he had written Oscar with Matthau in mind. Although Walter lobbied to play the neater Felix, Simon refused. "Your Oscar? Take it or leave it." In 1966, Matthau starred in Billy Wilder's The Fortune Cookie with Jack Lemmon, his role as slick lawyer Whiplash. Willie won him the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. It also launched one of cinema's greatest partnerships. Matthau and Lemmon went on to co-star in 10 films over 30 years. But Matthau's life was not all triumph. He was a compulsive gambler. At one point in just 2 weeks, he lost $183,000, over $13,000 a day, betting on meaningless spring training baseball games. To cover debts, he borrowed from loan sharks, living in fear for 6 years. He later estimated that over his lifetime, he lost nearly $5 million gambling. The stress showed. He developed a permanent groove in his thumb from chewing his nails while watching games. He once admitted, "I've made $50 million movies and I've given most of it to the bookies." Gambling is pure misery. In 1966, while filming The Fortune Cookie, he collapsed from a heart attack at just 46. Years of chain smoking and stress had caught up. He survived, quit smoking, cut down gambling, and became devoted to long walks, logging about 15 meters a week, but heart issues dogged him the rest of his life. In 1976, he underwent risky bypass surgery, yet returned within months to star in The Bad News Bears. Matthau's sharp wit made him beloved by fans, but difficult on set. In Hello Dolly 1969, he clashed bitterly with 26-year-old Barbara Streisand. He called her Miss Poison, claimed she had no real talent, and even refused to kiss her during their wedding scene, forcing the director to fake it with camera tricks. When studio boss Richard Zanuck reminded him the film is not called Hello, Walter Matthau knew where he stood. The feud became almost as famous as the film itself. Still, he kept climbing. His Oscar win and Tony's success gave him freedom to choose roles. He proved his dramatic range in Coach, 1971, earning an Oscar nomination, and in The Sunshine Boys 1975 alongside George Burns. The pairing of Matthau and Jack Lemmon became iconic from The Odd Couple. 1968 to the front page 1974, Grumpy Old Men, 1993, and Out to Sea, 1997. Their chemistry spanned decades. Even in their 70s, audiences adored them. Grumpy Old Men earned over $70 million domestically. Matthau married twice. His first marriage to Grace Johnson in 1948 produced 2 children, David and Jenny, but ended in divorce in 1958. In 1959, he wed Carol Marcus Soyan, ex-wife of writer William Soyan. Their marriage lasted over 40 years until his death. Together, they had a son, Charles Charlie, born in 1962, who became a film director. Walter often said Charlie was his best friend, and they later worked together on The Grass Harp. 1995. Carol's memoir, Among the Porcupines, painted their life together with warmth and humor. Walter himself credited her with saving him from an abyss of primordial slime. In the 1990s, Matthau enjoyed a surprising career revival. Grumpy Old Men, 1993, and its sequel, Grumpier Old Men, 1995, introduced him to a new generation. Even in his 70s, he could still mix gruffness with charm and steal every scene. His final film, Hanging Up 2000, directed by Diane Keaton, showed him as a difficult but vulnerable aging father. Though reviews were mixed, critics praised his authenticity. Walter Matthau passed away on July 1, 2000 at 1:42 a.m. following a massive heart attack. He was 79. Despite decades of health battles, bypass surgery, kidney failure, pneumonia, he had continued acting right to the end. He was laid to rest at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles. Walter Matthau's career spanned over 20 Broadway plays, more than 150 television appearances, and dozens of films. He collected Tonys, an Oscar, and the admiration of generations. His slouch, raspy voice and impeccable timing made him unforgettable. Even his influence lived on in surprising ways. Don Castellaneta, the voice of Homer Simpson, originally modeled Homer's voice on Matthau's distinctive draw. Behind the gruff exterior, Matthau was known for practical jokes, dry wit, and kindness to friends. He once joked that his middle name was Foghorn and loved inventing fake surnames just to see reactions. In truth, Matthau's legacy is more than awards. He embodied resilience, survival, and authenticity. From a poverty-stricken childhood on the Lower East Side to one of Hollywood's greatest comedy icons, Walter Matthau never stopped being utterly unapologetically himself.